Hello everyone, I'm Patricia Núñez and I'm presenting Writing a Dissertation in an Online TEFL Program, the Ideal Trajectory. We are all aware of the great challenges that writing a dissertation poses, especially if we are writing it in a foreign language. But what is it like then to do it in an online program? To tell you a little bit about this, I'm going to present the case of one student, participant of my PhD research project for which I'm about to finish my thesis. The purpose of my PhD research project was to look into the academic digital literacy practices, that is, what happens around the writing process of an academic paper. In this case, the final research paper that the students produce for obtaining their degree in an online BA in TEFL, that is, a dissertation. For this, I followed the trajectories of 3 students as they developed their research project and wrote the report, until they presented it orally for their supervisor and 2 examiners, and delivered the final version. This is expected to take up to 7 months, and within this time, there are emerging events and practices that may overlap and intersect, and which shape their decision-making and problem-solution processes. The research context is a fully digitally mediated environment, and I focused on a specific course, the research seminar of this online BA in TEFL, which is offered by one of the major public universities in the southeast of Mexico. It is precisely for this seminar that the students need to develop their project. The theoretical framework of my study comprises 4 main areas. The first area deals with L2 student academic writing within the academic literacies framework. We can't deny that what we expect from student writing is usually based on the writing conventions of an academic research article. Reality, however, is much more complicated, as students bring with them a variety of social, cultural, educational, and linguistic backgrounds. So, expectations and reality do not always correspond to each other. Nonetheless, this doesn't mean that students' choices are not valid or are incorrect or deficient. The second area is that of literacy as a social practice. What people do around a text and how, when, where, and why they do it, where meaning making is key and where there are emerging events and practices as well as decision making and problem solving processes taking place. We are talking about people interacting with other people and different types of texts in order to make sense and construct knowledge. Then there is the area of multiliteracies, as this process can be related to different channels and modes of communication and with different cultures that can be connected to different literacies. Finally, we have digital literacies as social practice. This is not only about people knowing how to use digital resources, but what to use and how to use it, all of which is emerging and changing within a sociocultural context. Why to use it because there is a purpose, when to use it as it is historically situated, and where, since it involves different domains of life and settings. This implies a critical assessment of the use of digital resources and embraces the understanding of literacy as a social practice. Now, my project is a case study with a virtual ethnographic view of a unique example of real people, the online TEFL BA students, in real situations, in this case their online research writing in L2. Considering many variables and different perspectives of reality, especially those of the participants. So, there is an emphasis on both the online context in which the study takes place and the digital methods used to gather data in order to have access to the student participants' life stories. In this occasion, I'm going to present Jackie's case. Her trajectory was precisely of 7 months, the time expected in the program for the final research paper to be presented. I collected the data from a variety of sources, including all the activities that she uploaded for the research seminar, all the interaction between the facilitator and Jackie in the platform, which is called Eminus, such as messages and feedback to uploaded activities, all the email messages between the facilitator and Jackie, as well as those between Jackie and her supervisor, all WhatsApp interactions between Jackie and the facilitator and her supervisor, Jackie's drafts of her final research paper as well as her final version, all written feedback by the supervisor, the facilitator, and examiners for Jackie's drafts, and 2 interviews with Jackie, one with the facilitator and one with her supervisor. Now, at the moment the research seminar took place for Jackie, she was 29 years old and worked for a publishing house where she edited and commercialized their ELT books. She also worked for another company promoting studies abroad, where she checked that the information provided by the schools was reliable. She spent her childhood in the USA from the age of 9 until her first year in university. And then she came back to Mexico and studied a BA in Translation and Interpretation. She entered the online BA in TEFL with no previous teaching experience, and her final GPA was 8.69 out of 10. I chose Jackie as a participant because her academic trajectory was what could be considered an average one. That is, she was considered a quite responsible and committed student, and she usually obtained good grades, ranging from 7 to 10. Her result in the research seminar, however, was more than average. She obtained a grade of 10 out of 10 after delivering and presenting her final research paper. For the teachers involved in this process, Jackie's trajectory was the ideal one. Apart from the fact that it took her the exact time it is expected for this process, both her supervisor and research seminar facilitator were very happy with Jackie's process and result. For Cuauhtemoc, her supervisor, everything went smoothly, free-flowing. He didn't have to be after her. She just wrote to him when she had work ready, and the work she sent was so good that he hardly had to make any observations. Victoria, the research seminar facilitator, was also very satisfied with Jackie's trajectory. She reported that Jackie had worked well with her supervisor and made all the corrections that she had indicated. However, for Jackie, the experience didn't go as smoothly as it did for the facilitator and her supervisor. For her, the research seminar activities and the research seminar itself were pointless. She actually ignored several observations not only by the facilitator and her supervisor, but also from her examiners. And she found it difficult to make progress and comply to everybody's observations without anyone telling her not even the basics of a research paper. Jackie expressed her disappointment in the research seminar in that she did not feel the activities were helping her to write her research paper. She also mentioned that the feedback she received did not help either, or that it had been received too late. I kept track of Jackie's activity in the platform. She uploaded 12 out of a total of 13 activities. She received feedback for only 6 of these activities, and admittedly, she received feedback for them an average of 1 month after she had uploaded them. Nonetheless, Jackie may have taken into consideration the feedback she did receive from the facilitator more than she realized. For example, in one of the activities, Victoria observed that Jackie had not included the corresponding information for the research context section. which we can see in the first screenshot. When sending her first draft, Jackie included all the information that Victoria had indicated for this section, such as information about the type of school where she implemented her project, their system, methodologies they use, and the teachers, as we can see in the second screenshot. Another interesting aspect in Jackie's trajectory was that, despite the facilitator and her supervisor impressions, Jackie ignores several corrections and observations. Admittedly, the facilitator's feedback was received belatedly. Jackie had already worked with her supervisor and made many changes to her drafts when she received the facilitator's feedback for previous drafts. This is one of the reasons Jackie gave for ignoring some of Victoria's observations. Another reason for ignoring Victoria's feedback was that Jackie's supervisor did not consider those changes to be that necessary and allowed Jackie to decide to make them or not. And that is what she did, avoiding to make any major changes. For example, those related to including a section for relevant missing theory in the literature review chapter and more development for the categories in her findings chapter. Jackie also ignored observations the examiner made to her research paper before she presented it. Jackie felt she did not have time to make them all before the presentation. This was not really necessary, but that is what she understood at the moment. However, some of the changes were quite simple, such as several punctuation problems. Interestingly, her supervisor had insisted along the process that Jackie paid attention to punctuation. So, in the end, although Jackie did not add any other section to her literature review or developed more her categories, and ignored observations about punctuation problems, both Victoria and Cuauhtemoc felt Jackie had made all the changes they had indicated. Finally, Jackie experienced the process as a very lonely endeavor in which she had to solve everything on her own. She felt she had to figure out by herself what a dissertation looked like, what to include in it, how to organize it, how to look for relevant and reliable information, and then how to put together all the observations she received. As she may have ignored several, but she did make many changes. So, despite having access to the contents and doing practically all the activities of the research seminar, which revolved precisely around the process of writing the final research paper, Jackie still felt there was no real guidance. Seemingly, one of the reasons for Jackie to feel so lonely along the process was the online context in which all of it was embedded. She admitted she did not ask for more support, either via Eminus message, email, WhatsApp, or any other digital resource. However, more than online communication, what she actually longed for was face-to-face contact, someone she could sit with to discuss the steps to be followed, a face she could see, a voice she could hear. So, an ideal trajectory for teachers involved in this online writing process apparently includes a committed student. That is, a student who knows well what to do and does it. And why shouldn't students know it if they have all the content available online? Also, a committed student in that they seem to be working well with their supervisors and who make all the corrections that are pointed to them. All of these will lead to completing the work in the expected period of time and ensures more than an acceptable result. On the other hand, Even when a student is perceived by teachers as a successful case in this trajectory, they may not perceive it as such as a rewarding experience. For Jackie, the course was not helpful at all. She felt she was doing all the things on her own, sorting everything by herself, and longed for face-to-face contact as a way of real communication. As I said from the beginning, we must be all aware of the great challenges that academic writing poses for students and, frankly speaking, also for teachers. We would love things went smoothly and steadily, one step after another, but reality is quite different. There will always be confusion, insecurity, fear, hesitation, and even panic. We will sometimes love what we write, and sometimes we will hate it. And I say we because I'm a student myself, writing a dissertation, writing it in a foreign language, and doing it all in an online program, which I can assure you increases levels of stress. So, as teachers, let's not assume that if a student doesn't ask for help, he's doing it all right. Even when we perceive he or she is doing a good job, whatever that means for us. This admittedly not only applies for online learning environments, but if there's no face-to-face contact at all, it is more likely that we overlook how students are experiencing this process. Even when we have provided them with a great deal of guidelines available for them online, it is important to establish a more personal communication in order to make these guidelines clearer and let them know that, yes, they will be doing the writing, but it is us that will be doing the guiding. Moreover, clear guidelines are not only for students, but also for teachers involved in the process in order to consider them, not only to give feedback, but also to determine at the end if students have complied to them. So, for this, communication among the academic staff is of paramount importance. As students, we must not be afraid of asking for help and speaking up. Writing a dissertation is said to be a lonely process in general, and doing so in an online program can make it even harder to bear. So it is essential to be able to communicate, since there are fewer possibilities for teachers to notice the problems we may be going through, especially because this feeling of loneliness may contribute to overlooking important information that is available to us. And well, thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed the talk. And please, let's not make our students feel that academic writing is only about inflating weak ideas, obscuring pure reasoning, and inhibiting clarity. On the contrary, it is about presenting strong ideas to others, making meaning and constructing knowledge, and being able to transmit this clearly. And bear in mind that who we are, who we have talked to, what we have read, what we have lived, is an important element in how we go about this process. Thank you.